Good morning, everybody, and thank you for my colleagues in Dasher Technology for the invitation. As you see very well, I'm not Mac Wickman, but we try our best in XP to always give you the best you can be available. So Mac sent her regards, and I think just given the freshness of the subject of how Hewlett-Packard, particularly Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, is coming together with Aruba and HP networking technology. It's good that we got a chance to spend an hour together, and I appreciate your interest. For some of you, how many of you have actually subscribed to the Gartner Magic Quadrant results? And for those of you who have, you will notice that last week Gartner have published the latest quadrant on wired and wireless network for enterprise, and the combination of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and Aruba has far outstripped any of our competitors to be in the leadership quadrant. I want to make sure that my colleague in Dasher would make that information available to all of you so that you know that it is worthwhile taking a look at that solution. So I'm here to talk about mobility and how mobility intersects with security, which obviously is a very big topic to all of us. To talk about mobility, we have to talk about the modern workplace. And I'd like to spend a few minutes with you to kind of review, at least in my personal journey in the last few decades, of how we got through our workplace. Well, we start with what I call a Gen X environment. Everybody has a mainframe terminal on the desk. You work, you put in your hours, and then you go home. So when you go home, you put up your feet and open up a can, and you switch on your appliances of choice for entertain yourself. There's a complete segregation of the work environment and the life that you have. And what I call is that you lean forward at work and you lean back at home, and the world is actually quite simple. Then we got into the Gen X environment with the introduction of technologies such as laptops, such as VPN, such as DSL and firewall and so on. Now you can actually take some work to home, and you can do some of your live things at work. At lunchtime, you can make appointments, you can do some e-shopping because internet connection was good, and then with the laptop, with VPN and so on, you can take work to home. And the biggest problem with this generation of worker is this famous work-life balance. You have to figure out not to overspill your personal life with work, and then you not overdo your live things in the work, in the office environment. And then Gen X and Gen Y worker move into what we call Gen Mobile workers, in which your world is completely blurred. Every few minutes, you context switch between your work and your life. You can be seriously engaged in a customer activity, switch around, scold your children, come back, place an order, and then go back and make some engagement with your social life and so on, all on the same device. And doing massive amount of context switching, and everybody become ADD. The biggest issue in this environment is now, how can you, and this is incredibly productive, particularly when you're recruiting the younger generation of workers, they would not know how to do it anywhere else. And if you do not capitalize in this environment, you lose out in your workforce productivity. On the other hand, with the increased emphasis on cybersecurity, how can you make your work environment fully compliant to security requirement and yet enable this work mobility? And that is the rub. The idea is to create a new workplace that is not defined by offices, by walls, by cubicles, by meeting room. But creating a work environment where you focus on creating increasing frequent what we call collisionable moment. Okay, notice that this is not an English word, so we're creating that to get attention. What is a collisionable moment is where compute intersect with communicate, where you can aggregate and process vast amount of business relevant, timely information, collaborate with your coworker and your partners and your customers, and make high quality decision and do actions right at that in a highly secure manner. How do you provide an infrastructure to support that? This is an example of a customers of ours in California that actually reconstruct their workplace to increase this collisionable moment. As part of that office reconstruction, they have to massively overhaul the physical infrastructure. And I show you this diagram not to impress you that the environment is getting more green, there's less copper and so on going on. It is to show you that at the end of this cable is removed from this environment to enable this gigantic internet commerce company to do business effectively. But to show you that used to be at the end of this cable is the device. It's either a phone or a switch port or PBX port and so on. Those devices draw current. You pay software maintenance and hardware maintenance to this device. They require cooling, extra cooling, and they're doing absolutely no work for you. And it is just a metaphor of the general situation that we face with our IT investment looking forward. Everybody has a tight IT budget, but everybody is faced with most of the budget is tied to ongoing support of infrastructure put in there in the last decade, that a good portion of that is not generating useful work for you because your workforce have moved to Gen Mobile. Your infrastructure is tied down to your desk, to your office, to your server rooms where the servers are no longer there because they are now moving to the cloud. How do you optimize your current infrastructure so that you can free up cash and ongoing operating budget so that you have room to invest in mobilizing your next generation applications, putting stuff into the cloud, enabling this Gen Mobile work environment? That is the key agenda that Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and Aruba Networks has come together to try to solve for you. So to give you an architecture of how this can be played out, normally I use 4 words. You have to put in a stable network architecture. You have to make them secure. You have to make them smart and make it very simple to manage. And that really these 4 words represent the R&D investment that Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Aruba is going to put in. We actually have been working on this for the last decade. And we are a leader in providing stable, secure, smart, and simple network to support your next generation of IT infrastructure and the next generation of business application. And what I want to do for the remaining part of my talk is to summarize for you what each one of these words can do for your infrastructure. First, stable. The massive change in your work environment is the increasingly supplementing of your desktop computing device and your laptop with mobile devices of various kind, which shifted the connection ratio of wire to wireless drastically to be in favor of a nearly all wireless environment. And how do you create a stable infrastructure to support all kinds of traffic in this architecture is the key. And the key phrase here that we want to put in is think mobile, not think wireless. A lot of people think it's, oh, okay, I got new iPad, now I get new laptop with built-in wireless interface. Why don't I make my wireless, my work environment more wireless? No. Wireless is key, but wireless is not equal to mobile. Okay, let me give you an illustration. When we work with wireless in the office, we all think about Wi-Fi. If you recall, Wi-Fi was popularized, not invented, but popularized by Intel with the introduction of the Centrino chipset that was embedded in the laptop. In fact, Aruba Networks was founded 90 days after Intel publicly announced they're going to do the embedding of the Centrino chipset in all laptops, and they're going to spend $300 million worldwide to promote the usage of Wi-Fi. We figured that with that connection, with Wi-Fi, basically there is a shift in the networking paradigm in the office, and we rapidly find out that wireless is not the only cure. In fact, wireless creates a lot of problems. The larger organization, the larger campus you're dealing with, enabling wireless in your environment create more problems than you're solving. Because the network industry in the access network has spent 15 years or more stabilizing, making more reliable that Ethernet to the desktop, putting QoS on it so that you can deliver voice over IP. We have all kinds of delivery mechanism for multicast control, all kinds of security measure, all built around that Ethernet port. By just adding Wi-Fi to the last 50 feet, you create vulnerability, you create the weakest point of your network, because the moment you attach that wireless to the very well-designed Ethernet network, you lose manageability, you lose security, you completely lose QoS because you move from a switch media to a share media again, and you create massive amount of roaming problem. So Aruba was formed actually not to create just a wireless solution. We determined to create the best wireless solution, but at the same time, we need to give you back the solutions that wireless created problems for, which is, as I mentioned, once you put the wireless in, how do you manage thousands of people moving around without all the tools that you have created with your wired network? How do you create securities oriented solutions to that last 50, 100 feet? How do you maintain quality of service for differentiated classes of devices and services? And finally, how do you solve the roaming problem? The roaming problem is getting increasingly important. I mentioned mobile, not wireless. And why was not so big of an issue until the last few years? Well, the reason is when Intel introduced Wi-Fi, it was under the Windows operating system on the laptop, which is the popular computing environment. Now everybody knows that even no matter how technical and nerdy you are, with a laptop, you do not compute and walk at the same time, right? You walk up to get from one place to the other. You close your laptop and you walk with it. At least most of us do. Well, when you get to your destination, you open up your laptop, guess what? Windows has hibernated, right? So the amount of time that it takes for Windows to come back from hibernation can hide the ugliest pimple in the network because you have all the time to stitch again that connection. Here comes iPad, here comes Android devices, here comes devices that not only do not have have a cover to close, devices that never sleep, devices that rely more on multimedia interactions, like voice call and so on, than data transaction. Devices that people can actually use on one hand, so therefore they will continuously use it, causing massive amount of IP mobility and roaming problem. Right? So to design a network that is for the modern generation of worker using mobile devices is not an issue of designing a wireless extension to your wire infrastructure. It is to design a secure mobile access layer that is completely permeating into your distributed workplace. That's the issue. How do you create a stable environment that is a completely set of technical competence that HP, Aruba, through partners like Dasher, is going to offer you? And we created a new community. Actually, we vigorously have been called Airheads that address this particular problem, how to create a massively noisy, dense mobile environment and make your user feel like they never get disconnected from the wire infrastructure. And we have tested out the architecture, building out networks like the Microsoft Redmond campus, like the Google campus, like the Facebook campus, like the LinkedIn campus, and so on, and like the SAP campus in Germany, and so on. So it is massively tested, and we feel very confident that HP Aruba is absolutely the leader in being able to work with Dasher Technologies to create this new stable environment for you. Now, next thing about once you have a stable network, let's talk about the secure layer on top of that stable network. And before I talk about security, I'd like to talk about the BYOD effect, because BYOD drives a lot of the new security concern issue. When Aruba first came into business 13 years ago, the wireless security problem were focusing on the payload. What is in the air? Can people listen to it, and so on? And it's generally now established that the payload security problem is well solved. You can reliably say that the traffic in the air cannot be tapped. In fact, it is more safe. The encryption, the double encryption that you put on top of the network on wireless now can be used in military environment and so on, commercial environment. The issue now is whether the device that put the traffic into the air are legitimate device that belong to the corporation or belong to users who are authorized to use on the network in the corporations. And BYOD actually has a bigger effect on the whole IT operations than just wireless security. The issue is this. If you look into this, this used to be the flow of the IT organization. First, you have the engineering department who designed the standards for the desktop to voice network and data network. And then you have you issue RFP, and then you selected your vendors and so on. And the operations team built and deployed. And then you have your help desk to manage to move it and changes and the support of the users. So it's been flowing very well, and most IT shops are organized this way. Here comes BYOD. First of all, this is an introduction of a new box called users, right? Well, why was there not a user up here? Well, because everything is owned by the enterprise. An enterprise sets a standard, and the device gets issued to the user. The user either accepts it or not, and you accept it. It is standard configuration of this version of Windows, this version of hardware, and it's done. It's well controlled. But with BYOD, users bring in devices. They put to the help desk. Help desk sees a new activation request. It goes to operations. So what do you do? Operations say you cannot do it. I need to figure out from the engineering team, and engineering team said, no, we don't support it. They go back to the user, right? So why is it not the end of the story and then the user goes away? But because most of the users who bring these new devices in are the bosses, right? They're the CXOs, and IT couldn't say no. So what does IT do? IT set up a white glove service. They set up a concierge desk and say, cover this 15 people on the executive floor. Just shut them up, make them quiet. But the nature of this executive is they are very loudmouth. Once you get them working and they go and show around and say, hey, don't you have that, don't you have that? And they want to turn on and give it to all the departments. It's one thing to support a 30 people special white glove service kind of environment. It's another to extend it to 3,000 people and change the whole architecture. So here lies the problem. Okay, and because of all this not being able to say no, and all this massive introduction of new devices and new compute environment, you have to come up with a new way to attacking. Okay. By the way, nobody's getting more headcounts in the help desk, right? In fact, most people get shrinkage in this area. So you have to decouple this problem. And that's the fundamental issue we're trying to help you solve. Now, in this new environment, when you think about security, it causes an extra problem. The issue with security is for 2 decades, we think about firewalls as this line rather than this line that is separating some good stuff in this side from some potential attack on this side, right? The firewall is very perimeter-centric. You assume there's a green part of your network where everything is safe, and then there's a red part of your network that you filter the hell out of it, right? And they are typically associated with ports. Ports facing the internet is bad. Ports sitting in the lobby is bad. Ports sitting in the cafeteria in the training center is bad. Ports sitting deep in the building inside the CEO office is good, and ports inside the server room is good. And so there is a trusted part of the network, and there's an untrusted part. The issue is now that trusted and untrusted part of the network's blur. You're finding in this new Gen mobile environment that we talk about, the green users normally accessing the network on the red side, and inside your green network, there's a lot of red appliances. They are guests, they are contractors, they are BYOD devices, and so on. So the security suddenly becomes, you need a different kind of police, a police that is deeply embedded inside the traffic to sort things out. There's nobody, the world is no longer segregated as behind and in front anymore. In fact, the security problem becomes a three-legged problem. You have security issue related to where the servers are now aggregated, which is normally not inside your premise anymore. You have still your perimeter security in the sense this perimeter is where the internet and the intranet intersect. And then you have access security. Basically, no matter where the users are, where they want to access the network is the security boundary. And creating an architecture that allows these 3 levels of security interaction back and forth is the key. And to that extent, Aruba and XP offer the ClearPass policy-based user and device access management system in which we analyze the world in the following manner. We say that in this new BYOD mobile access world, you can generalize your access problem in 2 dimensions. That's the user, and those are the devices. The users generally, in a traditional manner, was classified as employees and visitors. The visitors can be a 1-hour guest to a 3-week auditor to a 2-year contractor, and so on and so on. And devices are divided into enterprise-owned device and bring your own device. So you basically have 4 quadrants that are 4 different sets of independent issues that you need to resolve. And traditionally, IT shops are very well trained to maintain control in this quadrant. If you are an employee and you have an enterprise-owned device, we can have policy that are very granular, and that's typically people either use Active Directory or any kind of LDAP related directory to identify your access right, and we map resources and access priority according to that. The issue is this is not the part of the network that's growing. This are the part of the network that is growing. And traditionally, you have different kinds of tools that come up that are not integrated with one another. And this caused a lot of training issues, budget issues, and so on. So basically, what we created is a general wraparound with the directory, like the Active Directory system called ClearPass that is creating a dynamic repository for all your user and your devices in your network. And we have a profiler that gives you an idea at any given point in time in all the buildings and your enterprise footprint, what devices you have, how many iPhone, how many Android, how many Windows Mobile, and so on in each building. We keep track of it. And we basically turn the IT shop into a small-scale service provider. You are now running a service, an access service, with subscriber. In this case, they're not paying you monthly, or maybe they are internally. That allowed you to define this into a single system. You say basically the objective is how can I dissolve this line and make it a single dynamic system. Right? One of the limitations of the traditional directory system is people don't mess around with the Active Directory on an hourly and a daily basis. It is kind of a batch process. But now the environment is second by second, minute by minute. So what do? First of all, you say, if I am a service provider, I'm not going to look at it from the point of view as being an employee and visitor. Normally, service providers say that you are either a platinum or gold and silver user, and typically what the rank of usage subscriber privileges define your bandwidth, how much airtime I give you, how much internet burst rate I give you, what resources you can access to, what application you can use, and so on. That defines your subscriber level, okay? And it also defines a relationship of sponsorship. Basically, if you are visiting me and I am in certain position that's defined by the directory, I can authorize what level of subscriber you have. Right, in Aruba network, I used to have 8 premium subscribers. They are guests, but they're very important guests. They are my board of directors. They only show up for 8 hours every 8 weeks. So when they show up, I want to give them the most premium service, right? So that they are very high priority guests. I'm going to turn them into a temporary platinum subscriber. Then I have a shipping clerk that's sitting in the warehouse for 10 years. And all he does is to use one SAP module and print the shipping label and so on. So he is a long-term bronze user, right? So once you have defined the concept of the network is all untrusted, and I will either momentarily or permanently or over a long period of time give you certain access right, moment by moment enable my network to lock it down for you or give a certain level of service. You give yourself the priority and the resource freeing up for supporting your user with a very limited number of help desk resources. The subscriber, by the way, are all geared towards self-provisioning, self-diagnostic, and so on. So you decouple the amount of users and devices from the amount of resources you need in your help desk, in running a help desk. This is a big deal. The second issue you need to resolve is this line. You're saying, okay, so how do I handle the BYOD problem? So how does a bring your own device different from an enterprise-owned device? The enterprise-owned device, you can issue a digital certificate And through that certificate, you can identify the device, you can quarantine it, you can check the posture, you can do all kinds of things to it. We say, so okay, why don't we have an arrangement that the moment you're on board yourself, you identify you're not a corporate-owned device, I temporarily, during that 8 hours that you are having a relationship with me, I give you a cert, and through that cert, I own you. So the promise that you have in return for using the access of my network is during that duration, you let me own a portion of your device that I know I can secure. And coupling with a mobile device management technology, ClearPass can therefore dynamically allow BYO device to get into very highly secure area. For example, we have applications that a doctor can use his own iPad working in a hospital, getting access to medical record for users, but HIPAA compliance rule dictated that the moment they leave the campus, leave the hospital, those information has to disappear. So a system like that we can couple with a location sensitivity capability and effect very granular security control. So this is not something we are postulating. This have been deployed, thousands of installations. The example shown here is Pacific Life using this kind of approach to support a totally BYO environment using Aruba and XP infrastructure. So that is what we have to say about secure air and secure network that support BYOD. The next thing is about smart. Now, if you assess the engineering investment for both HP and Aruba in the wire and wireless infrastructure, we feel like that we have done a good job in the last decade independently now together to provide the best industrial strength, stable and secure wire and wireless infrastructure. And that's how we got ourselves into the Gartner Magic Quadrant's superior position relative to our competitors. But if you ask me what is the excitement of the product roadmap in the next few years to come, it's in the area of smart network and simple management. So let me give you an idea of what smart network can do. But let us start with revisiting the network infrastructure paradigm. We all came into the industry, at least I came into the industry 30 years ago, or close to that, using the so-called OSI 7-layer model. I presume a lot of people are familiar with that model, right? That says that if you are in layer 1, you do transmission, you do absolutely nothing else. You faithfully transmit bit by bit to the other side. If you're on the layer 3, all you do is routing. You do not look into the payroll and so on. You reliably assemble, disassemble, and assemble streams of information, packetize it, and carry the packets through to the destination. And all the way to if you're on the application layer, you just do application. You assume everything else underneath you is a nice, stable pipe. That is a total segregation of responsibility for vendors in a different layer. In fact, you can position a company by saying that which layer of the OSI stack you're working on, and people know exactly what your business model is, what do you do, what value do you add. But that model is going to break. And it's going to break for several reasons, but for access network, for one simple reason. If you look at a venue like in this room, there's a certain amount of spectrum in the air, and particularly spectrum that is not controlled by the FCC, right? That are not licensed spectrum. And then you look at the roadmap for Apple and Samsung and Google and so on, and what devices are coming out, and what apps are going to go there, what kind of multimedia capability those devices go through. You rapidly come into the conclusion that we are going to run out of air very soon. And we're not talking about oxygen and carbon dioxide. We are talking about the unlicensed bandwidth. So if you do not differentiate traffic, if you don't make the air smart, you don't make your network end-to-end smart, you're going to jam up this big, gigantic shared media. This is different from the day when you come into a room like that, everybody sit in front of this 4 Ethernet port or 2 Ethernet port. And those Ethernet ports are segregated from one another. We're all sharing the air. I'm looking at Philip. He looks like he's typing on his thing. But who knows? He might have an iPhone in his pocket, and he might be videoing a lot of stuff before he comes in this room. And right now, he's looking at me as if he's just typing a few characters. His iPhone is streaming like crazy, occupying the air, doing iCloud backup, right? And unknowingly, he's basically screwing up the whole conference room for us. So I have to have the ability, if I want to control the traffic in this room, to make sure that I don't care if he's the President of the United States. iCloud backup at this moment is not important. My presentation takes precedence, right? So you're seeing now, suddenly we are talking about application and transmission in the same sentence. The reality is, if you do not let the layers interact, the stack is going to be totally inefficient when you move from wired to wireless. The mobile network for indoor, for high-density medium, particularly classroom, airport, stadium, convention center, hotel lobby, shopping malls, and so on, is going to melt down. Okay. So let me give you, just to continue with that example. Microsoft is now pushing Skype for Business. It used to be called Link 2013, right? And that is part of the vision of unified communication in a mobile environment. And in order to support a high-quality voice, and by the way, all this voice and videos are all encrypted. Let's say you deploy Skype for Business. There is SharePoint traffic. There is messaging traffic. There's Skype voice traffic, and there's multimedia calls and so on. Which stream do you know you should prioritize, which you should not, right? So the ability for you to differentiate traffic type in the air is paramount. And it is because of abilities like this that we put into the Aruba system that we are able, 20 months ago in the Aruba campus in Sunnyvale, to completely eliminate our desktop phones. There is not a single phone in the office environment that I work in. And that is including the receptionist, the assistants, and our telesales people. Because I decided Christmas 2014, this is actually January 2014, not 15. So in the Christmas time of 2013, I decided that we have to show the world that the technology, a smart air technology, is available to completely give you the reliability of voice communication that you don't really need a single connection. And this is kind of the other end of that big powder cable that I show you in one of our customers. Right? So smart air allowed you to do that. And why do I want to do that? Because not only is it a cost saving, we used to have this PBX there, now I just have a server. Not only am I eliminating a lot of infrastructure, but now it is one touch. I can reach any of my staff everywhere, and my assistant can set up a conference call between 7 people, just getting on the calendar, click, 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 and it's done. And used to be they have to coordinate a lot of other things. And we constantly change our conference time because of customer engagement and so on, and this is all automated. Right? were so successful that Microsoft actually make a case study that's application note using the Aruba campus as an example of how you can enable a global mobile unified communication infrastructure without a single piece of traditional telephony technology, and down to application of changing of behavior. A lot of this is not a technology issue. It's the anxiety to hang on to your phone set. What we found out is people are not addicted to the phone, they're addicted to the keyboard. They're used to how to forward a call and join a call and so on. This is all behavioral things that can change. A lot of people complain about voice over wireless quality. It turns out that they use a very lousy speaker, a microphone. Most people use a laptop microphone, which is like a 25 cents microphone, and you start out having a bad encryption and encoding, you start a bad call. So the things we learn is very behavioral and work habit oriented that we need to change. And so this is very important for this new environment. One word of caution is besides learning, we have to use very high quality microphone. I advise all my staff, they have to have very good looking pajamas because they might caught in a situation they thought they answered a call, except it's a video that came on. And so there's a lot of things we learn. Another thing about once you have the air that is smart, if you kind of just open up this rule about the networking equipment and software can now start participating in the application and the data, the payload, then suddenly the network infrastructure now can become part of your customer engagement system. And what I'm talking about, the kind of customers who actually have more guests visiting the premise using the network infrastructure than their own employee. Now, this is a big, big change in network design because used to be the way we design enterprise network is the best stuff is in the green zone, inside a firewall. And if you are a guest, you get the leftover. You get very little bit of bandwidth. You have to come in through VPN, and the moment you come in, we bump you right back out to the extranet and so on. The guest experience is normally very poor. But imagine you are running this place, like this resort, right? You're running a shopping mall. You're running an airport. You're running a hospital. You're running a stadium, a convention center. You can argue the people who are using your network outside of your firewall is more important than your employees because they directly, indirectly are funding your network. And now, because now everybody is carrying one of this, it can, the visitors' mobile devices can be used as a proxy as the users. If you are running a customer loyalty program, this is their customer loyalty card. We used to that when you check in the hotel, you take your hotel card, you check in the airport, you give your frequent flyer card and so on. This is your card. You don't even need to take it out in your pocket. If you have an app associated with an enterprise, we know when you come. We know when you're back. We know what did you do in the last time. We actually can track when you come into this mall, which side of the mall you go through, right? And if you're running that property, we have a lot of smart property owner who install this smart air system can use the analytics of foot traffic on a quarterly basis going back to the tenants to increase the rent and saying that, hey, I can prove to you that you have 40% more foot traffic in this corner than the shop across, and therefore it's justifiable that we adjust the rent, and so on. So suddenly, using a smart network infrastructure for engaging your customer and turning that air into a a customer loyalty system, a customer engagement system. We have the largest commercial owner in China. They are starting a war with Alibaba because they don't want to turn all the shopping malls into showcase for Alibaba, right? So they have to determine that the moment you come in to my mall, you're not going to get out until your wallet is empty. I want you to spend with me. The moment you park your car, you turn on your app. In fact, I'd like to give you the loyalty program, right? We give you incredibly, insanely good loyalty program, but I want to track you when you are at home, logging onto my e-commerce site. I want to tie your purchasing behavior online to when you show up into my enterprise. And when you show up into my enterprise, I can track who you are. This mall is very big. You know, they can actually on a peak day, they have hundreds of these malls, and then the malls can have up to 70,000 people visiting at the peak time. So how do you navigate through a mall like that? They have augmented reality, right? We have maps, obviously, blue dots and so on. That's augmented by BLE. It's combining Bluetooth and wireless Wi-Fi technology. You can therefore go in and look at the map and know where you are. There's augmented reality. You can hold up your camera like this, and all the shops that are in that direction that are relevant to you in your past shopping habit will show up on your screen. And as you scan through the mall, different shops come up, and only when you come into items that you like or shops you like, then you can start walking towards that direction. You can stand shopping just like this, right? And they have interaction systems whereby to alert the shop that you bought stuff from last time that your customer is coming, last time who bought a jacket with you has come back. Do you want to give him a promotion for equivalent subject? Right. The location sensitivity allow them to identify the customer down to he's standing in front of this Sony monitor for 5 minutes now, and suddenly there's a URL going to Alibaba. They know what is going on. They could issue a very specific advertising for the moment. If you buy this for the next 3 minutes, I give you a price match, or they can send an employee over to greet you, and so on. I personally tried that. I go and I bought a jacket. I get enough coupons to buy a shirt. I bought that shirt. I have enough points to get a cup of coffee. I never leave. And if I want to go use the facility, I push button. They tell me which one is empty, which one has the least queue. Right? By the time I'm done, I press. But normally at that time, you've completely forgotten where you park. At least I am. They show you back, trace it back to your car. Right? This smart air technology is totally employable. In fact, that is what we install in the Levi Stadium for the 49ers. So next time you go for a game, not only would you enjoy very, very good Wi-Fi, but you enjoy very smart Wi-Fi. You get your blue dot. You get all these other applications that come up. My point is there's going to be a tight integration of mobile apps with analytics that are derived from a smart wire and wireless infrastructure with a unified management system. And that's all available now, current technology. Right? By the way, in this kind of China situation, the next thing we do is we integrate the Bluetooth technology right into the point of sale. And the next thing is you pick up what you want to buy, you scan it yourself, you shake, you get charged to your wallet. Oh, sorry. I didn't buy anything. So this is all here. This is the magic. This is exciting because that means your network is not a cost center anymore. Your network is part of your revenue generation system. Your network is part of your marketing campaign. And for us, that really is tying to the next subject I want to talk to you about. Before that, I want to also show you an example. The Boston Children's Hospital also deployed this technology. They want to be able to, in one instant, track down all the physicians. They want to show the patients how to get straight to where they want to go. They want to be able to have the florists and so on to push notification to increase revenue. They want to be able to track down the most important and expensive equipment in the network in a time of emergency and so on. So this is highly, highly doable. So last thing is about simple, right? We are talking about creating a lot of functionality in the network, and how does it get implemented that you don't need 5 PhDs to run your network. So part of the success of pushing all this technology out to our customers is to be able to make it simple on the user's end. Network management used to be performing function for configuring, installing, monitor, and fix. Those are all important. But next generation network management has to do with predictive maintenance, have to do with predictive capacity planning, have to warn you of problems that are going to happen before they hit the users, at least before it hits the important users. Right? We have a network management feature, for example, that we created for a specific CIO in a certain large casino that I visited, and he was complaining. I walked in his office, that was about 2 years ago, and he said, "Damn, I have a new boss, and he is into mobile devices, and everything we doing have to move to the mobile app, and I don't know what happened. He always stand in the wrong spot that there's bad Wi-Fi coverage, and he always is the first one who complain that the mobile app doesn't work kind of full speed and so on." I say, so in your organization, how many people are like that you really care that if the network has a pimple, you have absolutely need to fix it before they come? He thought about it. He said about 15 to 20. They are either my peer or my boss, and some of the power user who has a loud mouth and so on. I say, okay, how about I give you a network management panel? You define who those people are, and I track those people for you, and proactively, if I find maybe they have a new device and so on, whenever I see a packet loss or application performance that is not satisfactory, before they even know it, I alert your help desk so that they say, sure, I like it, so we deliver again, that feature, and it is one of the most popular features in our network management system. Every shop has 15, 30 people that you want to proactively cover, right? I mean, and those are the kind of things that is very important that your network management system need to be smart. But underlying, we have to do a lot of the work for you in reconfiguring and dynamically understanding the increase in density, change in application mix, and so on. And this is an area for software-defined network. What I've been telling you for the last 20 minutes, fundamental application of software-defined network, SDN, in the access network. So far, everybody is familiar with the term SDN in a data center context, right? SDN's only application up to now is in the data center. And there's only one key application in data center, which was created by VMware, right? It used to be we have the nice server cluster with the load balancer and server switch and so on into the cluster. That's the engineering cluster. There's a sales cluster and so on. And it's very nicely segregated with router and switches with VLAN and so on. But then suddenly VMware come in and say, hey, you have peaks and troughs. I can load balance it across using virtual machines. And suddenly you have all this large cluster that are physical, that is all pool. And then you have a virtual machine environment, and you dynamically assign those applications to different machines. So fundamentally, you make a very cost-effective investment, but you're creating massive amount of reconfiguration requirement for the people who run the physical infrastructure. So the way they get around it and say, hey, well, how about we decouple all the VLANs and the layer 2, layer 3 stuff from all the virtual stuff so that we can insert an SDN controller. So basically, we fool the upstairs as if they are still connected physically. But as you move all those workload around, I dynamically reconfigure the infrastructure so I don't need to constantly reconfigure the hardware. And that's really the key application of SDN in the data center. And what I just explained to you is fundamentally the same thing, where we used to define our client-server network, the local area network, with a cluster of desks and where the servers are, and we segregated in those. And that is our network design unit in the access network. But what we're saying is those definitions by the user map to the device, to the desk, to the port, that is ancient. That is not applicable. When is the last time that your own traffic, even when you're in the office, actually going through the port that is attached to your desk? Close to zero, I can tell you, right? So, but that network management tools and so on are all still locking into the VLAN and the ports and the access controllers, and all the filtering is doing very physical. What we're saying is no. Using the Aruba controller and the HP SDN enable wire infrastructure, we can decouple that. We can dynamically shift all your control lists and the filtering and so on, depending on how you configure your application and the users. And that is, for example, an example shown here is that we have one network administrator with thousands of switchboards with different access control lists and so on in a large school district that, according to the need of the application, get kind of push one button, so to speak, and all this reconfiguration happening. And now with Aruba and HP networking coming together, we can design an end-to-end wire and wireless unified infrastructure converged in a single set of policy and a single set of software-defined priority end-to-end, so that you can effectively turn on those Skype calls, turn on the multi-point video conference, and suppress all those bulk traffic, identify location-based applications and so on, all without network operator intervention. And that is the nature of the smart network. So here you have it. Forwards. Sorry, we have to use 30 minutes to describe forwards. But if you can master what we're doing in how to build a stable converged infrastructure, put a layer of security on top of it that is tied to BYOD and mobile users, create the application-aware smartness and the location-aware smartness on top of the network, and using SDN technology to apply that common and simple network management interface. Now, with the combination with HP, we have a fifth S. Actually, we have a comprehensive range of services from consultative installation to full or outsourced services, which I'm sure in partnership with Dasher, I'll be able to offer all of you. And that is the story of how HP and Aruba are coming together. Now, as all of you know, on November 1st, HP ourselves splitting into two entities with each one about $55 billion, with Matt Wickman heading Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and Patricia Russo being the chairman, and with Deanne Wessler heading HP Inc., with Meg herself being the chairman. And of course, networking belonged to the HP Enterprise, together with server, software, converged system, storage, services, and cloud. And we, starting actually August 1st, for the last 40 days now, have been running the two entities as a separate company. So everything has been separated: payroll, information systems, and all the internal control system. So we're going to run the two company 90 days as a separate entity internally. Then in the mid-November timeframe, we're going to report the results one last time as two separate entities within the HP umbrella, and from then on, will be split into two separate Fortune 50 companies. So, and that's the status. And we are very excited as be part of the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise going forward. There will be 4 transformation areas that we bring to our customers in terms of building a hybrid infrastructure, securing your enterprise, and creating data analytic lets you drive your business, and finally transformation of the workplace. And Aruba and HP networking will be central to all 4 of the business. And in that context, we'd like to continue to work with you and in this very exciting future. I want to thank my host here for giving us the airwave, and I also want to thank you for your attention. Part of the term of the integration is the complete portfolio, sales, marketing, R&D, engineering, manufacturing of all Hewlett-Packard networking component entities report into Aruba. So I run the whole thing. So yes, it's integrated. HP actually have 2 lines of product. One under the old HP ProCurve, later on term Provision, and they have wired and wireless. And then they bought X3C, which is Huawei 3Com, that has the CommWare operating system that actually also have wired and wireless. And then we have Aruba, which also is mobility software, security software, wireless, and a small line of wired product. So going forward, outside of China, there will be a single wireless operating system, and that will be the Aruba operating system. And within the campus, the HP Provision line of product will be integrated with Aruba. So starting early next year, HP will no longer provide switching product for the campus. All campus product for access will be provided under the Aruba brand and will be integrated managed by the Aruba Airwave system. And the ClearPass management system that I mentioned will have API interface directly into the ASIC of the HP switches. So the Provision and Aruba will be integrated. Now 3Com, the CommWare line is a bit different because the major strength of the CommWare line is in the data center and the core switching, and we will continue to preserve that. And you probably heard that HP has announced a spin out 51% of the interest of the 3Com company for the purpose of capturing a big portion of the Chinese market, because post Snowden, the China government have announced that all the in the next 2-3 years, all the government networks and the networks for the government-owned the state-owned enterprises will shift towards a made in China orientation. So HP want to capture a big portion. Obviously, our biggest competitor is not made in China, so that is an initiative to primarily designed to capture that portion of the market. So we retain a 49% interest of that joint venture, which also report into me. And the intent is continue to keep that line of product, the CommWare product, which has been very successful in our larger customers' core network and the data center network. So going forward, you will have 2 lines for the campus and the branch and the mobile access. It will be Aruba with wired and wireless, and for data center, we will continue to use the common. I hope that